Okay, midweek 6. We're looking at prepositional phrases. But first, let's do some review. So we know that words that supply extra information about specific parts of a sentence are called modifiers, which remember just means they describe, right? So the words that describe nouns and pronouns, what are they called? Nouns and pronouns are described by adjectives, and they answer the questions what kind, which ones, or how many. And then the words that describe verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs are known as adverbs, and they answer the questions when, where, how much, and how often. I don't know why there's no comma there. We need a comma. Let's stick in a little comma there. There we go. Okay. Adverbs can be moved throughout the sentence while adjectives cannot. True or false? That is 100% true. Adverbs can move, adjectives need to stay in place, else they won't make sense. And adverbs often, but not always, end with what two letters? Ly, right? That is usually the hint that you have an adverb. So, if we have the fuzzy cat slept peacefully in the warm sunshine, we've got some adjectives, we've got some adverbs, and I want to know what they're describing, okay? So let's first find a noun. One person, place, thing, or idea that I see is cat. So what adjective describes cat? That cat is a fuzzy cat. So we got fuzzy, then we got cat. What's another noun in that sentence? Person, place, thing, or idea? Sunshine. What kind of sunshine? It is warm sunshine. And then the adverb describing the verb. Well, what's the verb? What's the action? Slept. How did the cat sleep? The adverb, peacefully. Yay, peacefully slept. My intense sister spoke rather passionately about her cat. Why don't you take a minute and you guys try to figure this one out, and then I'll see if you got the answer right or not. Or I suppose I'll give the answer and you can see if you got it right or not. Beep, 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 beep. Alright, cool. So we've got one noun, sister. What kind of sister? She is an intense sister. So that'd be your adjective and your noun. The verb being described is spoke. How is she speaking? Passionately. So your adverb, passionately. And then the adverb that describes how passionately would be rather passionately. So there are those answers. If you need to pause and write them down, by all means, go ahead and do that. But I'm going to keep moving on. Alright, so if I have the sentence, the picture blank the cover is amusing. We're missing a word here. And that word would tell us the information about this picture. Is it on the cover, in the cover, near the cover, over the cover, or behind the cover? We don't know where it's located. So we need these words, the on, in, near, over, or behind, to show the relationship between the noun cover and what other noun? Picture. So Jerry strolled blank the park admiring the trees. Again, a word is missing and we need to know, is he strolling through the park, past the park, around the park, or towards the park? We have no idea. So we need those words to show the relationship between the noun park and the verb action strolled. Where did he stroll? So circle, star, highlight this. New part of speech that will never go away. A word that shows the relationship of a noun or a pronoun that follows it to some other word in the sentence is called a preposition. And the key word here is relationship. It shows where one thing is in relation to something else. Okay? Now, many prepositions show relationship in their physical position. Okay? And all of these words, I want you to circle, star, highlight. Those are all prepositions that show position, okay? In, on, by, under, below, beneath, above, over, besides, behind, across, against, etc., etc., etc. There's lots of prepositions. So if we have boxer crackers, man from Mars, and car behind us, which one of those prepositions of, from, or behind show where one thing is in position to something else? That would have to be car behind us, right? Now, some prepositions show direction, such as to, from, towards, down, up, or at. Again, good ones to circle, star, highlight. So if the rock rolled down the mountain, the preposition here that shows the relationship and direction between the rock and the mountain would, of course, have to be the preposition down. I highlighted the wrong word. And then there's ones that show relationship in time. So like before, during, after, until, till, all those are time relationships. So if you brush your teeth, blank meals, or park your car, blank the corner, which one is requiring a time relationship, right? One thing after another thing would have to be brush your teeth. Brush your teeth after meals or before meals or during your meal if you really felt like it. Whereas park your car after the corner or before the corner or whatever, that would be more of a position relationship. There are other prepositions that really don't fit into categories, such as of, for, about, with, except, and but, whenever it means except. But they still show a relationship between the words that they're connecting. So like a pound of tea, a letter for me, a story about war, a cake with frosting, of, for, about, and with are all considered what part of speech? Prepositions. Okay, so far so good? Hopefully. So circles I highlight this. The noun or pronoun that follows a preposition is called its object. So I will talk about the object of the preposition a lot. That just means the noun that goes right after it. So like with of tea, tea is the noun that would be the object. For me, me would be the pronoun that would be the object. With frosting, frosting would be the object of the preposition. About war, war would be the object of the preposition. It's the noun that comes right after the preposition, or the closest after. So a man in the next seat was doctor. Okay, so the preposition in the sentence is in, right? It's relating the noun man to what? To the seat. That is where he is. He's in the seat. So the object of the preposition, the noun that comes after in, would have to be what word? Seat. That relates back to the man. Okay? So a group of words that begins with a preposition and ends with the object, that noun or pronoun, is called a prepositional phrase. Circle, star, highlight this. So in this sentence, the prepositional phrase would be in the next seat. It starts with the preposition, it ends with that noun, that object. Okay, so the cause of this sudden explosion remains a mystery. So the prepositional phrase is going to begin with what preposition here and then end with what object. So take a second for your best guess. What do you think is the preposition? And then tell me what the noun is that comes right after it. You should have of as your preposition. And then the next noun in the sentence is explosion. Okay? Now here's a fun hint. If you take this out of the sentence, you have the cause remains a mystery. That still makes sense as a sentence. Most of the time, if you take the prepositional phrase out of the sentence, you will still have a full sentence remaining. So if I had asked you on a test to find the prepositional phrase and you just said of this sudden, and then you were like, okay, I'm going to check myself. The cause explosion remains a mystery. That wouldn't sound right. So you would know, I didn't go far enough. It's got to be of the sudden explosion. Now the cause remains a mystery. Makes sense. So the fun thing about these prepositional phrases is you can kind of check yourself as you go, which is nice. So why do we need prepositional phrases? Well, basically we need them to express meanings that cannot be expressed by a single adjective or a single adverb. Even though language is constantly fluctuating and you're constantly adding words, there are still limitations. So prepositional phrases can help with that. So if we have a glass for milk or a glass for water, I can say a water glass or a milky glass. But of these two, which one doesn't really correspond to the prepositional phrase? A water glass, yeah, works for a glass for water, but a milky glass usually refers to like the physical glass, right? It's kind of like you can't see through it as well. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily a glass specifically for milk. So milky doesn't necessarily work. We need the prepositional phrase for milk. Same thing here. We walked with care. We walked carefully. We traveled by train. We traveled trainly. Obviously, trainly does not necessarily work. In fact, it's got the little red line underneath it because Microsoft Word knows that it's wrong. So the adverb carefully can be substituted with the prepositional phrase with care, but can trainly work to replace by train? No, so don't try it. So most prepositional phrases function as modifiers, okay? So when you have a prepositional phrase like with care, that is either describing a noun or a verb. It either acts as an adjective or as an adverb. When it's acting like an adjective, it's going to be called an adjective phrase. When it acts like an adverb, it's going to be an adverb phrase. But regardless, they're both prepositional phrases, okay? It's just how it functions. It's like if you have a job, you have your job title, but there's multiple things you can do that is part of your functioning role in a, I don't know, company or whatever. So an adjective phrase does the work of what part of speech? Like it sounds like, it works like an adjective. So examples of this. If we have the corner house, we know house is the noun, corner is the adjective because it describes the house. But if we have the house on the corner is my prepositional phrase. It starts with the preposition on, it ends with the object corner, but it's still describing the house. Where is it? It's on the corner. So since it's still describing a noun, just like corner did up here, this is going to be considered a what kind of phrase? An adjective phrase. So the corner house, the house on the corner. So notice when it's just an adjective, corner comes right in front of the noun it describes. But the adjective phrase, does it come before or after the noun it describes? It comes after the noun, which a lot of times is the case, although not always. So adjective phrases, just like adjectives, they can often be used after a linking verb to function as the subject complement. Remember, by subject complement, I mean it just finishes off the sentence. So if we have the lilacs are beautiful versus the lilacs are in full bloom. Both of these sentences have subject complements, okay? Beautiful describes the lilacs, in full bloom describes the lilacs. Of the two though, which one is an adjective phrase because it's describing the subject? It would have to be B. In full bloom describes the subject, lilacs. I haven't said this yet, but by phrase, I mean like more than one word, okay? And it doesn't make sense by itself. We'll get more into it later, the difference between like a phrase and an individual word, but we don't have to be that complicated just yet. So, in all of these four sentences except one, we have the linking verb being followed by an adjective phrase, and they're all being used as subject complements. So the plane was on time, the crops were dry, the piano seems in tune, the ring is of no value. So of the four, which is the only one that doesn't have an adjective phrase describing the subject as a subject complement? C, because C is only an adjective, whereas on time is a phrase, in tune is a phrase, of no value is a phrase, and they all describe the subjects. Now remember how like a second ago I said if you take the prepositional phrase out of the sentence will still make sense? That is only true if it's not functioning as a subject complement. If it is, like it was up here, I would just be left with the lilacs are, and that doesn't make any sense. But if it's used as like a direct object or just extra information, then you take it out, sentence should still make sense. Alright, hopefully you're still following along, because I will say this is one of the more complicated foundational stuff that you need to know. So, a prepositional phrase, like I said, can also be used as an adverb. So if you have like spoke proudly, proudly is my adverb that describes how I spoke. We know it's an adverb because it ends with the ly. So I can say you spoke with pride. With pride is still describing how you spoke. So it's still going to be functioning as an adverb phrase. It's a prepositional phrase functioning as an adverb. Now, Like the adverbs that they resemble, adverb phrases will answer the questions when, where, or how about the verb, okay? So the car turned at the next intersection. Is at the next intersection telling me when it turned, where it turned, or how it turned? Mainly, when did it turn? Sorry, where did it turn? During the night, it snowed. During the night is telling me when it turned. And we mended the picture with glue. That would have to be how. How did we mend it? With glue. So, where, when, how. But the adverb phrase can also answer the question why about a verb. I often read science fiction for change. I often read science fiction for a few days. Both of these sentences have prepositional phrases starting with the preposition of for, but which one tells me why I read science fiction? A. I read it for a change. The adverb phrase, just like any old adverb, it can also be moved from one position to another in the sentence. Circle, star, highlight this. Adverb phrases can move. Basically, anything that ever functions like an adverb can move in a sentence, and it will still make sense. So, example, my friend takes a nap after dinner. I can switch it around and say after dinner my friend takes a nap, and it still makes sense. So the fact that this prepositional phrase can be moved shows that it's an adjective or adverb phrase. Which one? Adverb, because only adverbs can move. They have improved the design of the car. A crowd was standing around the car. So in one of these sentences, the phrase is functioning like an adjective and it cannot move. In the other, it's functioning as an adverb phrase, which means it can move. So of the two, which one's the adverb phrase that can move around in the sentence and still make sense? That would have to be B, right? I can say around the car, a crowd was standing, or a crowd around the car was standing. But if I take of the car and try to put it in the front of the car, they have improved the design. That sounds weird. It sounds like Yoda's talking or something. We don't want that. So adverb phrases can usually be moved around. Therefore, they are sometimes several words away from the verb that they describe. So like on the first automobiles, solid rubber tires were used versus solid rubber tires were used on the first automobiles. So of the two, which one has the adverb phrase farthest away from the verb that it modifies? Well, first we got to find what the verb is, right? So what's the action in the sentence? It is were used. So this one has the phrase right next to it. This one has it way up in front, all the way away. So A would be your answer there. So we have a pot of stew was simmering on the stove. So you'll notice we have two prepositional phrases. We have of stew and we have on the stove. Okay? So we got to figure out which one's the adjective phrase and which one's the adverb phrase. The way to do that is to figure out what word they are describing. Okay? So what is of stew? And the answer to that question is answered by a word in the sentence. So what is of stew? Oh, the pot is of stew. So pot being a noun makes of stew be your adjective phrase. On the stove though, what is happening on the stove? The answer is it is simmering on the stove. So since of on the stove describes the verb, this would be your adverb phrase. So on the stove and of stew, which is right there for you. Okay. So we saw through the telescope the outline of a ship. So again, we have two prepositional phrases, through the telescope and of a ship. One is an adverb because it's describing an action. One is an adjective because it's describing a noun. So let's start with this one, through the telescope. What is happening through the telescope? We are seeing. We saw through the telescope. Saw is an action. It's a verb, which means this would be what kind of a phrase? Adverb phrase. And then of a ship, what is of a ship? The outline is of a ship. And in this case, outline would be a noun, which would make it an adjective phrase. Now this is why you have to be careful sometimes with a sentence. Depending on the context of a sentence, the word outline could mean a verb, right? I could be outlining a body on the side of the road. Not that I've done that. But outline would be an action in that case. Whereas in this sentence, outline, I'm talking about the physical outline of a ship. So you have to read the sentence carefully. You can't just see the word right by itself and be like, oh, I know what that is. Another example would be like the word cook. In one sentence, cook could be a person, right? The cook prepared the meal. But in another sentence, it could be an action. It could be a verb, like we cooked dinner. So you have to be careful with reading the sentence before you make your final choice. Now, moving right along, because there's still so much stuff about prepositional phrases. When you have two or more prepositional phrases in a row, each phrase can modify a different word. You can have lots and lots and lots of prepositional phrases in a row. That would mean you'd have really, really long sentences, but it's still okay. And each phrase will modify a specific word. So if we put a drop of water under the microscope, of water is a prepositional phrase, under the microscope is a prepositional phrase. We know because it starts with the preposition of and under, and it ends at the first noun that follows, which in this case was water and then microscope. So the adjective phrase of water is modifying what noun? So what is of water? It is a drop of water. And then under the microscope, what's under the microscope or what is happening under the microscope? We are putting that drop of water under the microscope. So we got drop and we got put. Now, as if it wasn't complicated enough, two or more prepositional phrases can also describe the same word. That does happen sometimes. Not often, but it does happen. So like if Dad drove to Chicago on Friday. To Chicago is a prepositional phrase. We know because to is my preposition. Chicago is the next noun in the sentence. On Friday, same thing. So what is happening to Chicago? It describes the verb drove. And when is it happening on Friday? Or sorry, what is happening on Friday? They are driving on Friday. So in this case, both of those phrases modify the verb drove. And there are your answers if you need them. Yay! Almost done. So, prepositional phrases, taking it up even further, can also modify the object of the preceding prepositional phrase. Okay? So you could have two prepositional phrases in a row where the second one is describing the noun in the one in front of it. So an example of this, we have the family lived on the edge of a great forest. We got two prepositional phrases, on the edge of a great forest. What is happening on the edge? The family is living on the edge. So lived. But what is of a great forest? It is the edge of a great forest. So you see how this phrase can modify a word over here, but this phrase can modify the object in this prepositional phrase. That can happen, okay? So, remember, a prepositional phrase that describes a noun or pronoun is called a what kind of phrase? What part of speech describes nouns and pronouns? Adjective. And then a prepositional phrase that describes a verb, an adjective, or an adverb is called a what kind of phrase? An adverb phrase. So, this TV program brings the services of a great university into your home. So, this sentence has two prepositional phrases in it. One is an adjective phrase, one is an adverb phrase. So, first we got to find the prepositions. We've got of as one, and that goes all the way to the next noun, which would be university. And then we've got into, which goes all the way to the noun home. So, what is happening into your home? Let's start there. Well, it is being brought into your home, right? This program is bringing those services into your home. So, since it's describing a verb, into your home would be your adverb phrase. Now, of a great university, what is of a great university? The services of a great university. Services being a noun here would make of a great university your adjective phrase. I swear this is a lot easier for me to explain in person So apologies if you are trying to learn this by video. But if you have questions, you can always ask me or shoot me an email or whatever. Hopefully in person would be easier, but just in case. Alright, so same type of thing. Our mayor is a person with a reputation for great honesty. We have two prepositional phrases. What are they? If you can't find them, go back to those slides with the prepositions on it and try to find it there. But I'm just, for the sake of moving this along, going to say with a reputation is one phrase and for great honesty is another phrase. Okay? So, who or what is with a reputation? It is a person with a reputation. Person is a noun, which would make this an adjective phrase. And for great honesty, what for great honesty? They have a reputation for great honesty. So in this case, both of those phrases are adjective phrases, which happens. You don't always have one of both. You might have 6 adjective phrases and 1 adverb phrase. It's totally up to the author of the sentence. This one. In several states, the smoke from this forest fire could be clearly seen. Alright, so first I see from this forest fire, right? What is from this forest fire? The smoke. And smoke is another one of those words where you have to be careful. Is it talking about smoke like a physical thing, or is it talking about smoke like you're smoking, like an action? In this case, it's a physical thing, which would mean it's a noun, which would mean from this forest fire is an adjective. Now the other one, where is that other phrase? Don't be tricked. It's way up here in the front. That's okay. In several states. So what is happening in several states? The smoke is being seen. So since that's a verb, this would be an adverb phrase. Okay? Now, hopefully all that is okay so far. Some words can be used as either prepositions or as adverbs because English is tricky, gosh darn it. So words like that include like behind, before, after, pass, through, down, around, generally the direction prepositions. So to decide how such a word is being used, you need to look for an object, a noun that comes after the preposition. If there's one there, then it's functioning as a preposition. But if it's not there, it's just being an adverb. So if we have the dog trotted behind versus the dog trotted behind the car, which sentence has an object there to make behind a preposition? It would be be. What's the object? Car. Ralph fell down the stairs. Ralph fell down. Both sentences have down, but which one has down functioning as a preposition? Because there's an object after it. That would have to be A. What's the object? Stairs. And there are those answers there. All right. The farmer stood around and chatted. The farmer stood around the courthouse. Which one has around being followed by an object, a noun? It would be B. What's the object? Courthouse. Whereas chatted, it's just the verb. The bus went by without stopping. The bus went by the corner without stopping. Which one has the bus being by something with an object? That would have to be B, right? There is that corner. So corner would be the object. B would be by would be a preposition in B. Okay, now if we were in class, we would have so much fun with this. Okay, when I was in 5th grade, I was taught this preposition song to the tune of Yankee Doodle. The preposition song, every year I make my classes sing it, and then you guys have a quiz over it. If you can memorize it to the song, that makes it a heck of a lot easier because songs help us memorize things a lot easier. It's just pure fact, okay? Obviously this is over a video, so I can't necessarily teach it to you the same way I would in class, but I will sing it to you, and I encourage you to memorize it, okay? Reason being, prepositions are hard to spot because there are so many of them. This song does not include all of them. There's way more than that. A lot of times I've found students find prepositions the hardest to find. So if you memorize the song, then all you got to do is sing it to yourself very quickly which won't take long, maybe like 30 seconds. And then if you find the preposition, that'll make it a lot easier than being like, okay, now which word in the sentence is functioning as a relationship between a noun and something else, and that just gets too complicated. If you memorize the song, it makes your life easier, okay? So this goes to the tune of Yankee Doodle. I'm going to sing it, I don't know, once or twice or maybe 3 times total, but I'll do the first one slowly, and then maybe you can listen to it a few times and try singing along. Will that make you feel stupid? Absolutely. Do I feel stupid doing it right now? Yeah, because I'm sitting in my apartment singing to myself, but it's okay. I won't judge you. So here is the preposition song, which I had to memorize in 5th grade. With on, for, after, at, by, in, against, instead of, near, between, through, over, up, according to, around, about, beyond, into, until, within, without, upon, from, above, across, along, toward, before, behind, below, beneath, beside, during, under. Alright, so that's the preposition song. So my recommendation for trying to memorize this is to go line by line, right? With on, for, after, at, by, in, and just sing that to yourself multiple times. And then add in the next line. Against, instead of, near, between. Once you get those two together, through, over, up, according to. And then the 4th line, around, about, beyond, into. Then try to do that whole stanza together. With on, for, after, at, by, in, against, instead of, near, between, through, over, up, according to, around, about, beyond, into. Move along until, within, without, upon. Then add in from, above, across, along. Then add in toward, before, behind, below. And then beneath, beside, during, under. So then you try with the second stanza. Until, within, without, upon, from, above, across, along, toward, before, behind, below, beneath, beside, during, under. So then, one final time, the whole song. With on, for, after, at, by, in, against, instead of, near, between, through, over, up, according to, around, about, beyond, into, until, within, without, upon, from, above, across, along, toward, before, behind, below, beneath, beside, during, under. And that is the preposition song. So go ahead and memorize it. Yay!